Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the introduction. And Nadeem Saab, if you're looking for a joint venture advisor who can travel with all those lovely places, I'm available. No, seriously, I was muh mein pani aa rahe the. But anyway, so this is the topic I was given. Literally, I was given this topic yesterday and told to come and stand in front of you. And then obviously I knew Shazad Saab is coming here, so I knew he's going to touch upon all the important things that a leader needs to have. So I'm not going to get into that, but I think as a disclaimer, there's no substitute for hard work, having ethics, making sure that, you know, there are no shortcuts, and being ethical in how you do your work are some of the major prerequisites for any leader in any century, in the past, present, or future. So I'm not going to dwell on that, but let me start with what I can just share. And before I go into it, let me just say, I don't have the answers. If I knew the answers, I would not be standing in front of you guys. I would be sitting in Hawaii or somewhere, having a pina colada and enjoying life. But what I can tell you is, hopefully, if I think I've achieved my objective, if I can just make you guys think about your own selves and about the businesses you're running and how you think of competition, how do you think of your customers, and so forth. So with that, have I got the thing? Let me start with, I only have 4 slides, so I'm going to keep it short, though the clock is ticking, and I'm going to ignore it. But I'm going to start with the Amazon story. How has business changed? In one sense, if you look at Amazon, a lot has changed. In one sense, nothing has changed. But I think this is a story to be followed for all of us. Amazon, I remember in 1995, was looking for an IPO. At that time, I was a young banker on Wall Street working, and one of the companies that we bought, Alex Brown, so I worked for Deutsche Bank at that time, we bought Alex Brown. So DMG, Deutsche Morgan Grenfell, and Alex Brown did the IPO. No credible bank wanted to touch them because they all said, this is a failed IPO. Ye company to chalegi nahi. It's, what is it? Books bech rahi hai, it's a bookseller, and after all, it's, you know, there are no barriers to entry. Why the hell should this company survive? And they are asking for an IPO. You know, there was just no believer in it. 3 banks got together, Hambrick and Quest, Alex Brown, and DMG, and they floated this IPO in 1997. The value at that time was $450 million. And today, again, fast forward, this company has become, you know, has gone from a bookstore, from a pure, simple bookstore selling books into cloud computing and logistics and so many other things that we are going to hear about later today or during the day. And today it's worth $450 billion. Just to give perspective, Walmart at that time, when they went public, was $90 billion. Walmart, as you know, was the retailing giant at that time. Today, Walmart is half of that. So just to give you, Walmart is a 10th of what Amazon is. So I think the lesson that I wanted to just sort of share with you, practically, it's a case of, if you look at what did change in retailing, effectively everything has changed in retailing, and everything will continue to change. It's a case study of ceaseless execution when it comes to innovation and disruption, right? If you look at where they are right now, they're into cloud computing. They're the first line online merchandiser. They have one of the best return policies. They came up with free shipping. They did many first, unheard customer service, user reviews right there and there. Normally you would not have that, one-click payment, and so forth and so on. It merged the lines between retailer, logistic company, and a technology company. And that's what they have changed. But then what you ask the question, and I think that can be found, the answer, what hasn't changed, and that was in Jeff Bezos' letter in 1997, what did not change. And in that letter, he talked about 3 things, and I think these are 3 things we all should think about. Relentless focus on customer service. I think the idea was whatever we did, customer comes first. How many of us really do that? Long-term versus short-term. I think their view on that was focus on the long run. Any disruption also is going to be a long-run thing. It's not going to happen overnight. To him, quote unquote, he said disruption is a 10-year process. We all say about aajkal buzzword hai, disruptive, disruptive, disruptive. I use it many a times, but the point is, remember, it's not going to it's disruptive, but it's a long-term process. And enter, you know, and then obviously when you enter to disrupt the companies, like, unlike Yahoo, the world, or even Uber, don't even take multiple steps at a time. By that mean, bite as much as you can eat. I think this is something also very important. And I think enter to disrupt. Don't come in and try to be open fronts on multiple fronts because, Seth Saab, ya Mian Saab, ya Bhai Saab ne cement factory लगाई तो मुझे भी factory लगानी है. And I also want to do it because it's in vogue. Yeah, because there's a very favorable SRO in place, I want to do it. Really look within yourself. Is this your core competency? And unfortunately, we don't do that. Anyway, the story on this, on Amazon has been, again, journals and storybooks, and I'm here with some esteemed professors. I think it's a case study for everybody. But I think, again, these were some of the paradigm shifts that we did. So with that comes the question, are we prepared? What keeps me up at night? Well, a lot of things keep me up at night. Luckily, my wife is not here, so I won't get into that. But anyway, I'm a banker. I've been doing banking for a very long time, and banking is supposed to be one of those stable jobs. I remember एक ज़माना होता था कि वो माएँ और बाप और दादी दादा कहते थे banker है तो अच्छा है, stable job है, अच्छा रिश्ता आएगा तो banker को दे दो. And I used to early on. By the way, I don't get any more calls. Aunts and uncles and all used to call me and say, बेटा कोई अच्छा लड़का तुम्हारी बैंक में तो हमें ज़रूर बताना हमारी बेटी के लिए या अगर कोई अच्छी. But I think those days are gone. I think I'm trying to draw that banking is, the stability in the bank is no longer there. And I think anybody who thinks banking is a stable industry and it's something that's not going to be subject to any of the digital disruption, I think they're on a different world. I've said on multiple forums about digital disruption and what's going to happen to us. Those of you who watch Games of Thrones, there's a very famous saying, winter is coming, and I keep on saying disruption is coming. And again, I think this is a point, I'll just talk about the banking sector, but I'll draw some broader themes, is, agar aap dekhein, European banks have hardly spent anything. They've spent 0.5% of their total expenses on technology. There are different studies, whether it's McKinsey or E&Y or others, that they say banks, especially retail banks, are at most at risk, have only digitized 20 to 40%, and resulting in a very shallow digital offering, which is obviously causing some real challenges ahead. So I think the same estimates is if you put reasonably 30, 40% of the revenues of European banks are at risk. Particularly high turnover products like personal loan, because a lot of this stuff that we do or we take for granted that today banks do, there are a lot of companies in the fintech world that are coming up that are going to take over. So I think what keeps us up is, but I'm not alone. I think when I say all of this, I think there is a lot of studies done by different institutions, and the boundaries are being merged. And they're being merged very fast. So this is just, I'm giving you an example of, and paradigms are emerging, right? No longer you have to look, don't have to look too far, whether it's the Bitcoins and so many other things. So I think the point I'm trying to ask is what, with all that changes happening, are you asking that question, what's keeping you up at night? And in my case, honestly, I mean, there are different people who have different estimates. I don't want to draw my financial friends and colleagues here, but there is one study which says 70% of the jobs that we do today in the banking sector will become redundant. Somebody else will do it, and there's no reason why I should be doing certain things when I can get somebody better, nimbler, and more effective to do it for me at a lower cost, and if I put back at the center the customer who ultimately will benefit from lower cost of production. So I think that's something that keeps me up at night, and that's something that we all should be asking in our industry. So we are at Standard Chartered, and I'm a banker, and I'm a Standard Chartered banker, so I'm going to plug Standard Chartered. We are really on this war path with digital, right? We are really investing heavily on digital. Today, we have one of the best digital platforms in the marketplace. We have won multiple awards, locally and globally. And our thing is, it's not enough. There's a lot changing, and we need to do it, because the days of brick and mortar, anybody who asks me, and this is a very common question, I walk in, and mashallah, they've been very successful, and Allah kare unko bahut aur kamyabi mile. One question, beta kitni branches hain aapki? That's the absolute wrong question to ask a bank. It really does not matter uski kitni branches hai. Today, the day and age is not about brick and mortar. It's about touch points. It's about how can you serve me better. You need to ask about the balance sheet side. You need to know about the product suite. Just because you have a branch doesn't mean if I can get to your home today with iPads and all the other technology, you can do a lot. So I'm just giving you a thing what keeps me up at night. And what will the future look, what keeps me up at night? And with that comes the question of this digital disruption. And it's coming in all industry. I gave you an example of Amazon. I gave you an example of our own bank in the financial services sector. So what will the future look like? So again, with the original disclaimer, I don't have a crystal ball with me. If I did, I would actually not be here. But anyway, let me give you some thoughts that, I have, which I've read about, and I'm sure the professors here could either validate it or say I'm full of it, but please say it once I leave. It would be nice to hear that. But anyway, digital disruption. We've talked about this many a times. I've talked about this right now. I mean, the biggest car company, the biggest car rental company, Uberization. The word Uberization, by the way, is now added in the dictionary, right? So the biggest accommodation provider does not own any homes. You've heard this, and I'm sure you're going to hear it. No conference goes without it, so let me be the first one, Airbnb. If you look at the biggest content provider, YouTube has no content. If you look at the biggest telecom company, WhatsApp right now, does not own any towers. And the list goes on. And the car service company, the biggest car rental company, does not own any cars, like Uber. So I think this is happening, and I think we all need to be, of which I think we all need to be aware of the digital disruption that's going on in our fields. And I think there's no industry that I know of, and as a banker, we have a pretty good bird's eye view, that digital is not going to have an impact. So please think about, when you're thinking about the future, when you're thinking about your new plants and machinery and all that, think about how this is going to change, how your competitors will change. The second thing is, I think, related to the first one. It's companies versus ecosystem. I think the days are gone about companies. I think it's nice to talk about meri company ye ya meri company ne wo kara, but I think we are evolving into an ecosystem. And I think the best example I can talk about that is WeChat, right? I think that's 10 cents. I don't know how many of you know of a company called 10 cents in China. 10 cents started as a typical voice messaging company, which went from, it's like a WhatsApp, and now it's an entire ecosystem where they are absolutely providing not just voice, but they're providing data, they're providing reviews, they're providing restaurants, they're providing touch points, and it's just something that's really phenomenally changed how you look at it. It's all within that ecosystem, customers at the center, and through that, once you enter the 10 cents domain, you're effectively able to do multiple things, which typically you would not expect a telecom service provider to do. So I think what looks like is something that I think we really need to be mindful of that. And it simply started as a messaging service. Today, we can buy movie tickets from there. We can buy favorite restaurant reviews. We can share locations. We can play games with friends. We can purchase without coming into, without leaving the application at all. So I think, again, that's saying a world of ecosystem which is highly customer-centric. I think that's what's going to happen. Standard Chartered will have an ecosystem of companies that they'll work with. A company like Searle, a company like, and Searle is creating an ecosystem effectively in many ways, as Nadeem Saab was explaining. But I think what I'm telling you, a lot of your service providers, that functions that you are doing today will become outsourced and will be part of a larger ecosystem, and you'll work within that ecosystem. To the client or to the customer, which again is paramount, it will be again something, the lines are blurring. So I think that's something that again is going on quite effectively. And the last point I would say is the big monoliths versus small, versus small giants. I think, again, this goes to the point about while we have the Amazons, while we have the Alibabas, and while we have the bigger companies, I think if you look behind them, there are a bunch of small companies that are supporting it. And I think that's what it is. I think the 21st century or the 20th century was dominated by Forbes 400. I think the 21st century will be small giants of Forbes 4 million. There are going to be lots of different companies that will be aligning, working within the ecosystem and helping. And that will help you do your job a lot better. But don't be territorial about it. Don't say, I'm going to do it because ye to purane riwayate hain, ye to purana structure hai. This is how we want to do it. You need to have controls in place. You need to have comfort that your source of, if you're a garment manufacturer, that aapki supply is not disrupted, does not get disturbed. But again, that's it. And why do I say that? I'll just quickly talk about the 3 structural reasons why. There's a structural change going on, right? We talked about technology. A lot of people are getting displaced. And frankly, the view is that, as I mentioned earlier, that there are a lot of roles that will become, when people become displaced, they become creative, they become innovative, and they are coming up with ideas, and they are coming up with small businesses, and with technology and with social media and everything else, they can come up with solutions which are a lot more nimbler, a lot more effective, and that's going to what's happening. I think generally there's an interest in niche products. I think the one-size-fits-all ke zamana chala gaya. I think people, the millennial age, everybody is talking about, don't generalize us. And I think with that, you need to have specialization. A company cannot afford to have niche products for everything. So therefore, they're going to rely on this. And ever-decreasing barriers to entry, right? I think today, I'll give you my example. I think in the community that I come from, Maiman community, family generation business बहुत है. दादा ने कोई चाय की importer है, चाय का brand है, उसके बाप और वालिद साहब का है और फिर बेटा कर रहा है, and 3 generation and all that. Frankly, today, and they've created a brand reputation and they have that scale and they're sitting in Jodia Bazaar. Today, if you have the right sourcing, if you have the right product, and if you have the right approach to car, you can break into that barrier very quickly. And today you don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. Today through social media, and you can do it. I'm making life easier, but I'm trying to communicate this message to the youth, especially to the second or third row mein baithe hue, ki there's world of opportunity ahead for future leaders. So I think that's something that one needs to think about when so the old myth about just having a Fortune 100 company or Fortune 1 company, and as I said, I only have 4 slides. This is my last slide. Thriving in change. So, I was asked, you need to conclude with something, thriving in change as leaders. Again, with the preamble and the disclaimer that, look, and I sincerely, passionately believe that whatever you do, as leaders, you need to do it passionately and you need to do it ethically. I think sometimes this is lost on our new generation leaders. I think that's so much important. Don't do things because your father tells you or your mother tells you or that's in vogue. You need to be a leader who needs to be passionate about what he or she wants to do. You need to do it ethically. Don't find shortcuts. Don't look for shortcuts either at work or through getting some special treatment, because those treatments will not sustain. They won't last. But aside from that, these are 4 things that I wanted to leave you guys with. Adopt this ecosystem mindset. I know maybe to some it's very natural, and but for those of you who don't, hearing it for the first time or hearing it, recently, please go do some read on this, and it's really the ecosystem. For me, it's not knowing my customers. Shazad Saab is my customer. Habib Metro is my customer. Honestly, I provide him financial institution services. He's a competitor of mine also. But that's not enough. I need to know Shazad Saab, Habib Metro's customer's customer. What are they doing? Not because I want to go and sell him those customers' products, but in today's day and age, knowing everybody's customer and then able to solve their problems, it becomes, when he comes to me and says, I want this product, I need to understand why is he asking, what his customers are. Aside from that, it's also compliance and controls and everything else. But know your customers' customers. I think we mashallah, have a lock to all the multinationals, local and otherwise. So when I say multinational, they don't need to be, Tapal I consider multinational, Searle I consider multinational. But they have their suppliers, they have their vendors. We work with all of them. We work with the vendors, we work with the suppliers, because we know if we can help them on that front, we are helping the company at the center. And again, it will help us come up with solutions that will be much more stickier than a competitor of ours walking in and just doing a Me Too product. So get into this, adopt that ecosystem mindset. And for yourselves also, if there are things that can be done by somebody else, be open to it, provided it meets your own protocols and standards. The second point, I would say, follow the data. I think data is the oil of the 21st century, right? I think anybody following this understands it. Today, we are blessed to have a lot of data. Today, I think I left my phone there, but on that phone, you don't know how much data you're leaving behind, how much footsteps one can follow you. With that phone, they know exactly that I'm standing here and I'm talking to you because my location button is on. And no matter what you do and how you switch it off, what was the last thing I checked on my Chrome or on my Google? And I think these are just examples of how you can get a lot of rich information about your customer. Again, if you put your customer at the center of everything. So follow the data. And this concept of big data, small data, I think, again, please be mindful of data and use it effectively because, again, you can do a lot of analytics. We can, based on that, I'll give you a very side example of data. So we, like, as you know, in the marketplace, everybody is giving credit card pe discounts. Barbecue tonight pe bhi le lein, okra pe bhi le lein, aap My Karachi pe bhi le lein, aur aap Nando's pe bhi le lein. Reality is, there are people who hate barbecue and they don't want to have barbecue. And there are people who just don't go to okra. And there are people who love Nando's. Wouldn't it be nice if rather than giving a holistic 10% discount or 20% discount to all these four restaurants, to a customer who only goes to Nando's, I offer him or her 25% discount and just to Nando's. And I can do that today. Pehle, I could not do that. Today, with the data that I have, I know exactly where my customer is spending. I have the analytics, I have the technology. So exactly that's what we are doing. I rather give him or her a higher discount at a restaurant of his choice. He's happy, she's happy. We get more money because more money is traffic, and we don't need to assume that this person will go to Okra or My Karachi and have to give lesser discount. So it's all economics at the back of it. So again, follow the data because I think that data will really, really help you. Third point is build emotional ties with your customers. Again, I think this is the ethos of everything. Simple example, I think, is Gmail, right? When Gmail came in, there was no need for having another Gmail mail service, but it was basically access to clients. And today with Gmail, you have Google Maps and you have 10 other things that they've been able to create. So think about how you're going to build emotional ties with your customer. Emotional tie, agar aapne customer ke saath kar liya hai, any disruptive, any other thing that happens, if customer aapke saath hai, wo nahi hilega, to nothing can change it. But don't take your customer for granted. I think we take our customers for granted. I am blessed to work for an organization which has been here for over 150 years. We have customers who have been with us for five generations. Literally, I've had people who have come in and say, mere dada, mere pardada ka account aapke saath tak, if I look at, I was checking my father's papers. I think that level of connectivity, but if I start taking it for granted just because 3 sadiyon se wo mere saath kaam kar rahe hain, agar main aaj unko service nahi dunga, unko solutions nahi dunga, they will not be my customers. So don't take your customers for granted, build emotional ties, and change your partnership paradigm. And I think I would end on that is, again, be prepared to join hands with somebody. Sometimes they can be your competitors, and for good reason they can be your competitors. Facebook. Today, Facebook has 2 billion accounts. If today Facebook decided that they wanted to go, the biggest bank is in China, right? And they have 1 billion accounts. If today Facebook decided to go and started doing mobile banking and all the other things, and they started doing payment services, they would eradicate all the banking because they have more accounts, and if they put a payment plan and do it. So I think, again, given the fluidity of that we are in today, don't take things for granted, geography, location, where you are, and just be open to partnerships and how you want to do it. And again, I would end on the note that no longer is it inappropriate for a bookseller to become a computing giant. And I think this is something that one would, and this is exactly, times are changing, and this is what Amazon thought. And that's why Amazon is today one of the largest companies and one of the most successful companies, but they have not changed their core ethos, while they've changed a lot around it. With that, thank you very much.